Welcome to the Raw Spotlight podcast, where we feature inspiring leaders in the B2B space and share their unique stories. Let's get started with the show.
Hello, everybody. I'm Victor Huynh, your host of the Raw Spotlight, a podcast where we feature leaders from B2B businesses, community partners, and the public sector, including transportation, waste management, and environmental sustainability. Join us as we share their innovative strategies and inspiring success stories. Past guests includes Jackie Dilfer from BFC Funding and Dylan Feek, our city manager here in my hometown in Monrovia. Today's episode is brought to you by Ready Artwork, your trusted partner in B2B digital marketing and public digital outreach. We craft tailored strategies to help your organization grow and thrive long term. At Ready Artwork, we combine data-driven insights and creative design to boost your online success. Our experts specialize in SEO, digital advertising, web development, and email marketing, helping you unlock new opportunities in the digital world. To learn more, visit readyartwork.com. Today, we are honored to welcome Rocky Castro, owner and CEO of Golden State Grating Incorporated, GSG, a second-generation metal manufacturing and fabrication company specializing in metal grating for the construction industry. Rocky's path to leadership was unconventional. After serving 4 years in the U.S. Navy as a fire controlman, he pursued a degree in philosophy before shifting his focus to support his family business during the 2008 recession. Recognizing his lack of formal business experience, he took a strategic approach, gaining industry experience as a sales and business development professional at AMICO before returning to GSG in 2012. Committed to continuously learning, Rocky pursued elite business and leadership programs, including Goldman Sachs' 10,000 Small Businesses, USC's Bridge to Business, and Tony Robbins' Business Mastery. Under his leadership, GSG has expanded its reach, contributing to major projects such as Tesla's lithium refinement project, SoFi Stadium, and the Lucas Museum of Narrative Art. Today, GSG is Los Angeles City's certified fabrication shop and a certified small business, SBE, MBE, DBE. And for those of you guys that know, it's no small feat. Reflecting Rocky's dedication to excellence and innovation, he is an active member of industry organizations and continues to advance best practices in steel fabrication and construction technology. Join us as we explore Rocky's journey from overcoming business challenges to leading a thriving enterprise, offering valuable insights on resilience, leadership, and strategic growth. Welcome, Rocky.
Hey, thanks, man. That's probably like the best bio that I've ever had, so I appreciate that, dude.
Yeah, thank you for joining our episode today. And so, without further ado, I'm gonna just jump into our questions, and then we'll kind of learn more about you through this next half an hour or so. So, can you start by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about your journey from serving in the Navy to leading Golden State Grating?
Sure. So I'm 42 years old. I've been married for over a decade now. Have 3 children. My oldest 21, my youngest 8. So it's essentially, I think, very much more like your average guy, middle-aged, growing a business, and in the meantime, growing a family. So nothing too different, I think, than the average person there. And then I guess the question, the way that you referenced was, I guess, the background person I am. You asked my time in the Navy. Sorry, what was the question again?
It's more, Navy and also leading the company, right? And whatever comes to mind, right? I think it doesn't have to be exactly to the T, but we're more interested in learning about who Rocky is and your background to how you got to today, right? So yeah,
fair enough. Well, I enlisted in the Navy when I was 17 years old. And literally like a day that I was signing up at the MEPS, that's when the USS Cole like got bombed. So I was there in the MEPS, and then you see like on CNN and everything else that a Navy ship had gotten bombed, which is really kind of interesting, but I didn't necessarily think about the direct consequences of that at that point. And so as I finished my senior year, I shipped out to the Navy within a few months. And then I guess the main purpose at that point was probably I goofed off enough in high school, so I knew I needed some type of a structure. So I figured that the military was going to give me that. And so there was some direction, there was some purpose, right? Just knowing that I needed some type of a structure. So that was the reason why I had gone in place. And I want to say that that probably became kind of like the guide rails, I think, for some of my adult life. Because after I got out, not that I got out and I was an extremely disciplined person. I just think that there was enough structure in place that if I put my mind towards something, I knew that there was this process of rinse and repeat go towards like a common goal, and you could probably accomplish it. Um, and so at some point, it led over to me joining my dad inside of his business, and then essentially kind of became a rinse and repeat. What's the goal? What are we going after? And how do I just go and apply myself towards it? Um, yeah, and that's kind of the basics.
Cool. Yeah. So, we spoke about and it wasn't a straight line from school to Navy to being a CEO of a company, right? So right after that, I noticed on your bio that you actually came out and studied philosophy. So how did how did you choose philosophy, and how does it impact how you lead the company today?
Okay, interesting. Yeah. Um, so when I was in the Navy, I was fortunate enough. I ended up getting a girlfriend at some point, and I met her father, and he was a self-made business guy. And I think inside of his network, I was influenced largely by a person that was a private contractor, but he had spent some time in the CIA. And he kind of became a role model for me because he had a doctorate in philosophy. And so I never really considered that type of avenue. But I just noticed that when I talked to him, there's a very attractive way that he talked or he knew about things. He was very, any topic that you want to talk about, whether it be history, philosophy, or business or politics, he was very well versed from breadth of knowledge and also depth. And it seemed attractive. At the same time, I also grew up as a conservative Catholic. My folks come from Mexico, and so I was more the kid that I questioned everything, and so there wasn't really a blueprint. Let's just say from what I felt that I learned as a conservative Catholic kid going to private school, and then you have this religious foundation that's kind of like the limits of what my knowledge was. And so I think that philosophy kind of provided an avenue to kind of, start asking some questions and start thinking inside of different ways, other systems and processes. And that was just very attractive for me. So it was to be honest, I didn't know that they had a fun major like that. And so, yeah, I just really delved into it, man.
That's cool. Just a side note, unless he's like, CIA and you can't mention his name, if you want to drop names and you think they'll appreciate it, you can also say that and then send them a link. Hey, I spoke about you during the show.
Yeah, I prefer not to because there was something the last time that we talked, it's been maybe a little bit over a decade. He didn't like his name. Like if you typed it in Google, he didn't like the fact that it would pop up. So I'll just call him Jay.
All right. Fair enough. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to leave an open invite. If you think of someone else that doesn't mind getting some attention and you want to name drop, feel free. We don't have any restrictions on that.
Okay, cool. Definitely will.
Yeah. So it sounds like it was more like you discovered it and it was a fun topic, the idea of philosophy, right? Now, what did you take away from that experience, and how do you apply it to how you're running your business today? Is there any kind of correlation to what you learned and how you're running your organization?
I think so. I think it's kind of like it's having like an open type of a mindset. Like I forgot which Bruce Lee movie it was, right? But there's a part where essentially he kind of gets surrounded, and I think it's like the one where there's a bunch of mirrors, and he kind of like. I think he sits down, he starts to meditate a bit, right?
Huh?
And and I would say it becomes kind of like that. So if there's a problem that ends up coming out, I think a lot of points, maybe even me naturally, there's a natural impulsive reaction almost in a way to address it. And I think that when we stop to think about a problem that we have, like I'm always stuck with a mindset of, okay, there has to be a solution. What's the answer, right? What am I going after, and what's the answer? And I think that having a flexible mindset to approach something in kind of in a unique way can kind of provide the solutions that we want.
Mhm.
So I mean, when I first learned about communism, like the concept was that's an interesting concept, right? Capitalism, let's just say, even talking about some of the ancients, from the basic stuff from Plato or uh, Jean-Paul Sartre. It's just I liked what each one of them had to say, and they were all right to their own extent, but they all couldn't coexist at the same time. So you could kind of pick and choose your philosophy to address something specific inside of your life.
Awesome, awesome. I was gonna say Enter the Dragon, but then I googled it and it is Enter the Dragon.
It is Into the Dragon, right? I just didn't want to.
Yeah,
I
misquote.
didn't want to. Yeah, I didn't want to say the wrong one over here because if not, then yeah, they'll come back a little bit later. It's like, how could you miss that? But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. No, that's the first thing that came to mind. But I was like, same thought. I was like, let me Google it. It was Enter the
yeah,
Dragon. Yeah.
sure, sure.
All right. So that is really interesting. Like the idea of all these different philosophies and how they don't coexist, but you just got to pick a lane, right? And that kind of reflects on life. Now, dealing with what you're dealt, right? When you stepped into GSG during the '08 recession, what was the state of the business, and what were some of the immediate challenges that you faced, if you can remember, the situation back then?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So I remember I was working at Bank of America at that point, and uh, maybe like a comfortable job, and I kind of saw my peers at that point, and the worst thing I think that I heard, which is probably like a good thing, is I had my manager come up to me. And so he puts his hand on my shoulder and he says, Rocky, you remind me a lot of myself when I was your age. And, you keep at it and you could be just like me in, 5, 6, 7 years. And I would see him come in like an hour or two before me, and he'd be there at least an hour or two after me. And I was already working full time during this time. And then so I kind of looked at the pay that I was getting. I was getting some commission at that point too. And I was like, you probably don't make too much more than me. And I don't know if that's what I want. Right. So I very quickly noticed that I didn't really care too much for security. I didn't have a family then at that point, so it really didn't matter to me. So I could go and make and shift. But I saw my old man struggle quite a bit during that point, and so I talked to him and I pretty much said, "Hey, look, if we make it through this, it's supposed to be like really bad on the national and the global level, right? So if we can make it through this, we could probably make it through anything." So that was kind of like the choice. It was a bit of a challenge, a little bit naive on what it would be like, right? Not really knowing anything. So I just kind of threw myself at the problems over there. And so literally it was tough because not really knowing anything, just having a lot of ambition. I initially just started off and trying to do sales. So, doing outside sales and you're knocking on the door and, people don't want to talk to you. But when you finally do get an opportunity, it's like there's things that I noticed like right away. When it came to our raw material purchases, we didn't purchase it cheap enough, so our competitors were buying at a much better rate than we were. Right. Then there's some ad processes when it comes into the business that we're also priced out of the market as well. So at the very few opportunities that we were getting, like I couldn't buy a job and do a job cheap enough in order to go ahead and sell it. Right. So it was a very difficult position for us to go and be in. Again, it took a lot of effort just to be able to get a single opportunity at that time.
Mm.
So there was a lot of challenges, and then at that point, even still to a certain extent, we had no web presence. I had my at Gmail account or something like that, right? So not a lot of market recognition. At the same time, for the business that my father had, he had a customer base that had already been in the retiring phase already. So dwindling market share at that point. So there was a lot of challenges there at that time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it was a tough time for everyone during that time, especially right after the crash, right?
Yeah.
Um, so you mentioned, you lacked formal business experience early on. What are some of the biggest lessons that you learned the hard way? What are some of the big mistakes that says, I need to do this or I'm never going to do this again?
Yeah, sure. I mean, a lot of them. So, like, first one that comes out is my old man is old school. So, like, you imagine, like, he's a man of honor. He says he's going to go and take care of something, then he's going to go and do it. So I think what I wish and I naturally approached the market was a little bit naive. So, hey, I meet you. We're going to spit on our hands and we're going to shake hands and we have a deal. So, what I noticed is that a lot of the way that business was done was kind of loosey goosey based off of relationships. And the reality is that my old man had the relationships where, the people knew him and he knew them and they could trust each other. So they'd follow up with paperwork afterwards, right? But a lot of problems and solutions and jobs would just be because you and I had a discussion and you're saying, hey, Rocky, I trust you, go and move forward with it. And then we get it done. And so the time that I got involved was a little bit different because people didn't operate as honorable as, let's just say, the list of clients that my old man had, right? So when you have people essentially setting you up and their intention is maybe not to pay you, and then they're well acquainted with what the legal system is, and then you might have to go and chase them, for some work that you've done. We got involved in a lot of those things. So I got my butt kicked quite a few times. But it was a quick type of lesson. Like, from what I tell people, it's like, what happens if somebody comes up to you and punches you in the face? It's like, look, you could either duck or you could dodge it, right? But you're not just gonna stay there and let the same thing happen again.
Yeah, yeah. Contracts and just making sure your due diligence. I mean, we've had similar things where someone just like decided not to pay anymore, and just kind of left us high and dry. So yeah, losing a chunk of money will be a really fast learning experience.
Yes, it hurts, man. Like,
Yeah.
you realize how vulnerable you are at a lot of points, and then some of these contracts. I mean, I'm not sure like the type of contracts you happen to go and get, but it's like some of these things are like, especially in the beginning, they're intimidating. Like, I remember the first time before we used to give like a purchase order. Maybe it's like a single page, or someone sends an email, please move forward with this or something, right? And then I remember this one time I got a purchase order for maybe about 30 grand or something, let's just go ahead and say, but it was with a much bigger, larger company. And their purchase order was like 27, 28 pages, right? And I don't know how to go through all the, like, I don't know really, like, and I'm asking the question, and maybe I could ask you the same thing. So for a $30,000 project, like, are you going through 30, 40, 50, 100 pages? Are you reading every line item? Like, do we have the time in order to do that? Or it's just, and the reality is that I didn't, right? Yeah,
You're, you're not alone. Most Americans don't read contracts, right?
yeah,
It's a going joke. I mean, just to turn on your phone today, you probably opted into a bunch of stuff that you didn't even know what you opted into.
yeah. It's like,
But you gotta or you gotta hire someone to do it, right?
that's exactly
to read contracts. Yeah. But that's quite a bit for a $30,000 project, though. Typically it's a big company where they have to really cover all their bases. They have a lot of red tape, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
No, it gets pretty intimidating, but after a while, just like anything else, you just kind of get used to it, and then it becomes kind of like a normal, and then it's no big deal, right?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of boilerplates they put in there just to kind of cover every single scenario. But yeah, it becomes, first time is always the scariest.
It is. Yeah, I agree. The first time is the scariest. That's exactly what it is. I mean, now I think, I'm kind of salted a little bit, and I think I'm now in a position where, somebody's getting in a bad spot, and it's like I could approach them the way that maybe I had some mentors approach me, because I used to come out scared, like, what do I do? And then, you hear just kind of someone like, I expected the other person to freak out as much as I did, right? But they're like, okay, hey, like, it's simple. You just either choose this or you choose this. And I'm like, it's that binary. I'm like, yeah, look, you could get emotional about it all you want, but essentially you have this option, you have this option. Okay. And then it teaches you a couple things.
Pretty much, yeah. So, you at least you have an idea of where your shortcomings are in terms of not having that formal business education.
Yeah.
And, we learned that you did the Goldman Sachs program, the USC program, Tony Robbins program. Which one was the most useful, you would say, to you personally, and how do you apply what you learned from that?
Um, I'd probably have to say the Goldman Sachs. And if I could briefly put it in, is that so in 2008 I went to work with the old man, and then a little bit after, I think maybe midway towards the end of '09, I went to work for Amico in the same type of industry, and I got just more of a just sales and a territory type of a thing, and some market information. So very more macro sales and macro business type of an education there, right? But not formal. So when I brought it back into the business, I started bringing in jobs and work. And the reality is that, so during this time, it's myself and it's my folks that are working inside the business. And the business at this point, it's still run off of paper. So paper ledgers, everything else, right? The folks still use fax. I was the only person that used email at this point. So I had to try to convert it over into computers, which is a difficult thing. But I remember, and talking to my mom, she acted as the accountant. She's a very conservative person. And so the feedback that I would get without really looking at the accounting is that, hey, do you know how much our accounts payable are? Right? Like, I've never seen them this high before. And that's all the feedback that I would get. And so I knew I needed help, because we're putting in long hours, and it seems like if we're busy, and it seems like, well, we are busy, but I don't know, I have no idea if I'm making money or not. Right? And I know that, I think, like, it's after a certain point, it's not about working more hard. I need to hire people.
Right.
And it doesn't sound like, based off of how much we owe, right? I'm not paying attention to anything else. There's no other metrics that are being reported over here. I don't know what to go to and do. So all I know is I need a kick in the butt on really getting a pulse on my business. And I don't have that, right? So the Goldman Sachs program was really helpful, because it essentially, it's like an MBA style course. You have your advisors, and you got these modules in which you're going to be, each of the modules you're working on your business. So a little bit different. Let's just say that if I'd gone, to business administration or something in college, and then you're theoretically, I guess, doing analysis on different companies, different, I guess, aspects here. It's like your major is your business. So it gave me just a foundation. And unfortunately, I wasn't sophisticated enough to be able to grab or absorb all the information. It just gave me some basic structure again, right? But the basic structure that I got from it told me that I could hire two people right after, right? And then the networking and the people that I had, my advisor inside that program afterwards, we had become friends, and he became an advisor for us as we actually grew, right? And so essentially, it's like, hey, smart guy who knows business, like, I have some questions, like, is this possible? And then he would kind of start to walk me down, and in a way, he gave me informal education on my own business. So it's helpful.
It's awesome. Awesome. Okay. I think that would give anyone that's looking for that, a good idea of what that program is. Yeah. Now, let's kind of switch gears and talk about the business itself, right?
Sure.
So Golden State Grating primarily serves steel contractors and fabricators. Can you explain the role your company plays in construction projects and what sets you apart from the industry? Like, what is it that you guys actually do, and
Sure.
what sets you apart from other people doing the same thing?
Yeah, of course. So I guess maybe start on the outside, and we kind of work our way down to where we're at. So construction is going to kind of follow kind of like a pyramid, right? And at least for the conversation, we'll go ahead and put the general contractor as the top pinnacle person. So general contractor is going to primarily manage the whole job. They seldom self-perform, and they get a whole bunch of subs that are going to go ahead and actually do a lot of the trades work. So in any given type of a project, you're going to have, if it's going to be steel is one of the big ones, right? And concrete is going to be one of the big ones, right? You'll always get like, and those are the scopes or the trades that I interface with. So if you got a GC, general contractor, as your apex, steel subs are going to be right below them. And so I'm going to be a tier below the steel subcontractor. So I'm typically third tier in line inside of a project. So we don't do any of the installation. Okay. And so the way that we service the project, at least from the experience that we have, and it's kind of what makes us unique a little bit, is that I grew up no matter what inside the business. So when I was a kid, my old man would bring me in to work or help him out like on the weekends or a few other items. And it wasn't intentional, but I was able to absorb a decent amount of the trade. And I would say that in after '08 and '09, right, throughout most industries, but I'll just say for this conversation, we'll keep in the construction industries, there was a large exodus of talent at that point because whether you're an architect or an engineer or you're working in a large GC firm, you couldn't really hold on to staff that were getting paid six-figure type of salaries. So what happened in the marketplace is that they ended up just to be competitive because there was very little work out there. They fired all those people and they hired young people that were my age right outside of college. Okay. So it's like if you have somebody that's getting paid 100 grand, 120 grand back in '08, '09, you could hire two, three people for $30,000 and people were actually taking it. I had a friend of mine that had an MBA. He was happy to work for 35 grand a year as an engineer. That's kind of it. But we lost a lot of the expertise and we lost a lot of the trades at that point. So fortunately for us, Golden State Grating, and at least a little bit of the background that we have was that I have the trade knowledge, but so does my old man. So I was able to kind of keep best industry practices when it comes into steel and steel construction in general. And then what I kind of brought in was kind of developing it. And since we just converted from paper into electronic in 2012, right, I was kind of really able to introduce, I think, a lot of efficiencies in place. And so now when I'm working with my customer base, there's a lot of my customers where I have more experience than them, even though they're operating at a higher level. And even when it comes into the general contractor. And so we're able to, from our point, kind of guide them to best steel practices almost in a way, right? So we kind of know we have to shadow our customers to know what their job entails and to help them look out for a lot of liabilities. Because right now, when it comes into construction, a whole lot of liability, a whole lot of mistakes because you have inexperience leading inexperience. And then that causes, it's a lot of money out there in the job site. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of our unique point. So we have a specific product that's called steel grating. So imagine you have like a steel structure. So you got your columns, you got your beams, and what you imagine from a steel type of building. Our stuff is typically the items that are not the structural items, right? But it's going to be your stairs and your ladders and your catwalks and your platforms, right? It's what you call miscellaneous metals here. So we fit that portion of the project.
I remember I spoke to you a while back, and that iconic scene from Terminator where he's getting melted.
Yes, that's exactly it. That's exactly what it is. So inside those plants, like all those walkways and those catwalks, it has a lot of our stuff throughout all of it. Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's that grading stuff that
that's exactly
Terminator felt there. Yeah,
that's it. So when he's laying down and the T1000 kind of goes behind him and it kind of sticks like a steel pole through him. Yeah. So it went through him and it went through an actual steel grate as well, right? Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
That's what you guys do. Okay.
That's what we do. That's right.
Cool. Very cool. Very cool. Now, and has there been a lot of evolution in terms of new technology in the industry, in terms of when it comes to grate? Maybe you can kind of talk a little bit about that as well.
Technology and grading, not so much, but let's just say that we kind of become a little bit more creative. But let's just say like a lot of the big items is that information gets faster, okay? And then there's a lot of new technologies that happen to kind of come out. And so the way that I've seen, the way that we've approached over the past 10 years or so is the transfer of data being in one mode and getting it to the final point where you're going to go and give the customer the product. So I'll explain it just like this. We all know, we've all kind of seen schematics or blueprints of a construction job, right? We've seen the movies, then they're casing a bank, right? And you see these blueprints, right? So in construction, we kind of learn how to read those plans. And so for our stuff, we look through those plans at initial bid point, right? They give you some plans and you got to find. So for us, it's like a where's Waldo, but where's the grading, and you got to do a quantity you take off of that. Mm-hmm. Now, whenever you do that process, that's going to take time, and you're going to go ahead and actually extract some type of data from it. Okay. And at the end of the day, right, in one way or another, it could be months down the line or years down the line, that same data that you initially took off is going to be your final product that you're giving to your customer. And what ends up happening is that not too long ago, and still to this day, there was such a separation between what you have an estimator do, where they're doing a takeoff, right, where they're going through the schematics and they're doing a takeoff on it. And then it's going to go to somebody that's called detailing. They're the person that are going to kind of make all your fine-tuned blueprints specifically for what you build, right? And then you have a project manager, and then that stuff's going to go into your shop. Someone else is going to go and touch that data, and they're going to color up and touch it up for your shop. Then you got your cut sheets, and then you finally and you make it. So at all those stages, a lot of points, there was a new person involved, and they have to start from scratch. They get the data from the other guy, and then they're entering all the information processing in their own type of a system. So you have a lot of repeat information. What we've been trying to do, and it's not seamless, is that from a 3D model perspective, that's kind of like the wave of the future, and it's been around for a while. So I'll have an estimate, and I'll do a 3D model based off of it. Now that has data, I could import that data into an ERP system to today, and it's a lot easier to spit out a number. And then from that point, I now send out an estimate, and that time frame is faster. Now, if they give us the actual job, I now have a model, and from that model, I can now auto export out into shop sheets, right? And I should be able to auto export out into the shop to go and give work. So we're trying to make the evolution of a construction project a lot faster. And the thing is that there's no one system that captures it all. So it's kind of more like it's like a race to see which pieces of software and what your integration is that's going to make you the winner. I think for us, we started that process earlier because we're smaller and we're able to make the changes faster versus if you're a larger enterprise. Imagine you know what it's like to go in and bring in a new piece of software. Now you got to train everybody on it, and then you always get to catch some people that are reluctant to change.
Right.
So we've been doing it for a bit longer, but our competition has been catching up. They have the resources where for us we typically don't, so we got to be resourceful, right? So there's that, and then the other part that's coming right behind that, and it's not enough time, but is how AI is supposed to simplify that process. I know you've been going through it, and now it's a bigger question of how, right? What's going to be the best practice for us to implement it? Because I don't want to get left behind, man.
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah. We're noticing that, especially in our industry, right? You have AI software that can spit out websites now, but at the end of the day, that experience and that strategy piece, and understanding what the human needs are, and that's why those higher level strategy or those experience is going to come into play to go in line with AI. So it's about efficiencies. It's not really about replacing, but it's about efficiencies, right? And you guys already had the head start in terms of connecting everything and relying on automation, cutting down unnecessary roles. But the next step is AI. I was about to ask, like how much have you played around with AI in terms of your process yet?
Not so much. Well, I'll tell you this. So right now we have an ERP system that's called Tekla EPM. So it's a system actually that if you're a who's who in the industry, if you're still contractor, you're using this platform because it's made for steel guys, right? It's not necessarily made for grating guys, but we use it anyways. But it's got a lot of gaps. And so we hired somebody about a year ago, and he's essentially made a software that he's been using AI in order to kind of help write code to fill in gaps that the ERP system has, right? So essentially now we're interfacing with this new system that he created. We called it Nitro. And essentially it uses our ERP system as kind of more as a background data point. But now we interface with Nitro now, and then essentially it grabs a lot of our information and it kind of fills in some gaps. So it's helping our process to get a bit more seamless. Going back onto the conversion from an estimate all the way out, it's condensing the time frame of the data entry process. But we still barely scratched the surface. In Vistage, we had last month, we had somebody come in for the second time to tell us about AI. So I think my next step is taking an AI course. right? And very much what I would like to do if it's out there, I'm not sure if you got any ideas or opinions, is to be able to take kind of like an MBA style course, kind of like the Goldman Sachs 10K KSB program. But if I could do that on my business, if I had somebody that's helping throughout the middle of the process, I would so jump on that as of right now.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, Whether we like it or not, if you're using any piece of software, especially a SaaS software, you're using AI, whether you are doing it intentionally or not, right? Because
Yeah.
every software company is leveraging it, so indirectly or directly. So I want to kind of also touch a little bit about projects you guys have worked on, right? You've done really high profile stuff like Tesla's lithium refinement, SoFi Stadium, Lucas Museum. Can you share what it's like? How is that different from your regular customers? What's the experience?
Yeah, so let's just say the big one that kind of was a big changer for us, it was SoFi Stadium. So there's the Oculus, right? So if you're looking at the scoreboard, that the big oval, we're the ones that actually built it. So inside, it's just catwalk, stairs, and ladders on the inside. We work with the steel contractor called Herrick. They're the ones that actually, did the erection of it. We built that in smaller modules offsite, and then we took it on inside, and Herrick essentially put Humpty Dumpty together there for us.
Yeah.
That was kind of, we had some that required whatever we were diving into at this point. So I'm talking about 2018, 2017, I think when we first started to bid it, maybe. Um, it really asked us for expertise on the items that we were first kind of new in working with. So I had barely started working with 3D modeling or 3D laser scan services, right? And so what you kind of imagine, like kind of Dorothy landing in Oz almost in a way. I got the opportunity because I was an MBE DBE type of business, and then they did need to meet a certain type of a budget. And
Mhm.
so we fit the profile. Initially, we just thought they were going to ask for grading, but they asked us to pick a much bigger scope. And it's nothing that we haven't done. We just haven't done anything that like that on a large scale, right? And for that large of a price. And so it was challenging. It was intimidating for sure. There was a certain point before I signed contracts, I was like, am I really going to do this? Right? Do we really want this? Do I know what I'm getting myself into? But the reality is that, and I know now that whoever served on that project, I'm talking about and anybody, it was like the best of the best. And I had a friend and a mentor. His name's Roger Fisher. He's the one that actually helped us get onto that project. So he works for a company called TEC, but he was essentially Turner Construction's MBE, DBE, the diversity outreach guy. But he's had 34 years of experience in the industry, anyways. And there's something that he told me afterwards where he kind of said, "Look, it's like Rocky, like the people that we worked with will never have such a smart, capable crew working like you won't work on a project like that ever again." And not just talking about the scope of the project, but talking about real pros.
Mhm.
And so what I got to see was at the level that I had interfaced and interacted with, I was working with the best. And so I kind of sampled best practices from different companies. We would have like these conference calls, and this is like also during some of it's during COVID as well.
Mhm.
Uh, where I'm able to sample how different companies work and how they operate, and everybody's coming together to make this job happen. And it's a little bit different because since that point, let's just say if I look at something like George Lucas over there, it was almost the exact opposite. So the best aren't there, and instead of people coming together to try to push the project forward, it's like a liability type of a hot potato. So you got subs and vendors and GCs, and they're just like trying to pass the liability from one to the next. So then guess what? Things don't get done. People aren't putting themselves out on the line, and they're risking very little because they don't want the blowback, right? So
Mhm.
much different experience there. So I was lucky. Honestly, there was some luck there that got me to work with the best, and I got to work on a high profile job. And to be quite honest, it was largely successful, and I got to learn from it. And then from that point, it became a lot easier to kind of take on these types of jobs. So when it came into into Tesla, like the time frame and what they were asking for, it was much higher paced, right? Much more strict, but we were used to it and we're able to solve. We're used to solving problems already.
Awesome. Yeah, it's an opportunity, and I had one of my past guests. He's in property management, right?
Okay.
Josh McIntyre, and he's one of his things he said during the interview was, "Don't be afraid of the big deals."
Yeah.
And a lot of times we have this imposter syndrome as business owners, right? Especially homegrown ones,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I can do it. It's the same amount of effort. It's just, there's a lot of risk, but then it's sometimes not just monetary, it's experience, right? What you're talking about, right? When you're working on a big project like that. So would you say that is a defining moment in your career, that project, the SoFi Stadium?
Yeah, I would say so. It settled in a lot of different things. It's just like kind of more, the concept is, yes, we could do it, right? And I would say I'm not gonna say I haven't had high profile jobs since that point. We've had a lot, but talking about it being scary and new and a couple other things, absolutely. And it's something that I could go in and I could take my kids to, and absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah. So you're an active member in organizations like the National Association of Minority Contractors, Steel Fabrication Association. How has the community and industry networking played a role in your success?
I think it's huge. I had, and I'm pretty sure maybe you've gone through it before. People would tell you, hey, look, you have to network. And so you hear it as one of these things that you have to go and do. And I think I had a naive mindset in the beginning that I'd go to a networking event and I just meet somebody and just something's going to take off. And it's not really the case, right? You have to keep going. Okay. And it's not only that, it's like you develop relationships. So, I might have seen you at an event or two, but it's like after a while, it's like, hey, look, I know I've seen you around. You're a familiar face now. And so that builds trust.
Yeah.
And then there might be something actually that I don't even know, but I help you without today, tomorrow, 5 years down the line, you're in some type of unique point and you need something from me, or you just say, hey, here's Rocky, he can help you out. And that changes everything. So the SFA or NAMAC is really good at, they're really good at trying to promote their people. They're really good at it. They have a lot of high energy, and they're actively just trying to connect contractors, prime contractors with like subs, and everybody really goes out of the way to help each other. So you want to talk about from a marketing point, like you just expanded your sales presence by 200, right? And as long as you go and then you're also there to help, right? Like people will help you all the time. And then the SFA, the Steel Fabricators Association, it's a lot more niche, obviously, for what it is and what we do. But honestly, there's maybe like a couple events that we go to inside of a given year, but we've seen these people time and over at a lot of points. And it just, people get to know you. They become kind of like a neighbor almost in a way. And then it just becomes easier to do business.
Yeah. So you listed some hobbies, right? Martial arts, chess, anime. Do any of these hobbies influence how you approach business or leadership?
Yeah, probably chess, maybe an MMA. And I don't really do MMA so much today. It's just today it's more my heavy bag, right? It's just I get up in the morning and I hit my heavy bag, and I'm not as active as I am today as it was beforehand. But so let's just say that chess is going to be. I think whenever I play chess and I play others, you kind of see your personality as after you learn the basic types of the movements, right? And you kind of see how you are. What I noticed is that in chess, I like to be aggressive. There's something where, like, I don't like to move back. I don't like to defend a queen, right? So I'm going to move my queen in. If you're going to position something, then I'll swap queens with you. Or sometimes I'll swap a queen, right? And then I'll just take, a knight or something like that just to get position on the board. But I just want to keep attacking, right? But you learn flexible ways and how to deal with problems. That's why I like chess, right? And then when I love it when I find somebody that is able to go and beat me. And it's not to say that I'm good. I haven't played so many people, but I'd like to find a different way, a different style that beats me. So sometimes a really defensive player knows what I'm doing, sees what I'm coming a mile away, and then just really dominates me, right? And then I learn something from that. So in a way, I like to get my ass kicked, right? And I think that when it comes into martial arts, it's kind of like the same thing too. It's humbling. We all think as men, like, I could probably take him, and we've all had these thoughts, we've been in some fights or whatever else.
Yeah.
And you get humbled. That's it. And sometimes by people that you don't imagine could kick your ass, but it's really not about kicking someone else's ass. It's just really just, this is where I'm at today. Hey, this is where I'd like to go and be tomorrow. So it takes some of the fright away. Like, first time you get hit in the face, it's weird. And then after a while, it's a little bit more easier to deal with, you know? And that's it. I mean, I applied into business. I could get scared, I guess, in a way, right? Some of these points, you know, certain contracts or a couple of points, people didn't pay us and we had to sue them. And you're dealing with these lawsuits, and they could be intimidating, but it's still something that, okay, this is what I'm committing to. I'm going to go and learn X, Y, Z. I'm going up against a better player. They've done this beforehand, right? There was a company that we worked with beforehand that was used to not paying people and going into lawsuits. And then they were more experienced, right? Like, and okay, cool. But I definitely learned a lot if I haven't got through it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I have one final question, right?
Yeah.
Before I ask it though, I'm going to send our audience to your website, goldenstategrating.com. Normal spelling, nothing weird, no dashes, no hyphens, just goldenstategrating.com. And my last question is, if you could give one piece of advice to a business owner looking to scale their company, what would it be?
If you're a process-oriented person, trust in yourself, and set up the proper processes in place. If you're not, align yourself with somebody that is a process-oriented person. And I'm not naturally a process-oriented type of a person. And I have to tell you that having that right team, that where you share that vision and you set up the processes to scale up, is the most important thing. Because you know, and I've known that we've been there where it's like, okay, cool. Well, I'm going to increase my sales by 50%. This is going to put us over 100%. It's like, it sounds nice, but it's like you don't have the proper system, the personnel, cash flow, whatever else it is in order to go into meet that. And you could go up and you could slam right down too. And it's stressful. Yeah. And that's kind of it. I've had people that, you know, have gotten, you know, they've doubled their sales to 10 million a year or 20 million a year, but it's like, dude, I didn't make any more money. Actually, I was losing more money than I was at, you know, half or, you know, a percentage of what I'm making now. So I really, it wasn't sexy for me, but processes are extremely important. Like, set up the processes, have a way to go and get that stuff done. And it'll make scaling a lot more healthier, a lot less stress.
That's awesome. Well, we've been talking to Rocky Castro, CEO at Golden State Grating, philosopher, martial artist, avid anime fan. Rocky, where can people learn more about you? Are you active on LinkedIn?
You know what? No, I have a presence. To be honest, I've been scared to get a social media presence. I think the processes that we're setting up now, I think I'll be able to kind of take a higher influx of customers. That was kind of a dangerous part from us beforehand. Okay. So no, I do have a presence on LinkedIn, but it's not really all that big. I think that this next year we're probably going to be focusing on redoing our website and a lot of our media content.
Okay. So maybe I'll leave your email in our article, and if people need to, they can reach out to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it, Rick.
Thanks for listening to the Raw Spotlight podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.